The brothers Wisp. The brothers Wisp, brothers Wisp. The brothers Wisp. The brothers.
You're now listening to Greg. It's the brothers.
Hey everybody,
Wisp. Let's take
this
your
is
ride
Greg with the
streets
Brothers
of this
Wisp number 153. We have a star-studded cast. Believe it or not, we are right at the 10-year anniversary of starting this thing. And the very first episode was me, and just below me, Mr. Andrew Cox. And then along the way, we started picking up all of these interesting faces, which I think this is
Gallery?
maybe Peanut Gallery. Yeah, I think so. This is a good representation of all the faces we've had over time. So I think it's pretty cool that everybody gets back together. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go out on a limb, make a prediction. This will be 95% Tom Smyth, and everybody else can squeeze in wherever they fit. So, having said that, let's get Tom Smyth out of the way. Where are you from, bud?
From the best country in the world, Ireland. Sorry, guys. And I suppose I remember meeting Greg and Mike and Andrew. I think it was in... Where was it? It was in Louisiana.
Yeah, it was New Orleans where I met you for the first time.
New Orleans, yeah.
I
Big
will
Easy. It was very
never
good.
forget that
And,
first introduction to Tom Smith. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Giannis Vegas, we'd have to thank him for that. So shout out
Yeah,
to
he's
Giannis.
like, I got a guy you need to meet.
Yeah.
And he was definitely right. He's definitely right about that. All right, well, let's keep trucking. Over here, we've got Mikey Hammett. Where are you? Let me turn my finger that way. There you go. We got Mike Hammett.
I'm trying to think of something else to say, but I can never think of anything.
Then say the line. Say the line.
Hey, how's it
There
going?
it is. That's how people can definitely recognize you for sure. Mikey out of Chicagoland. Then we also have Nick Arellano, almost out of Chicagoland.
Hey, how's it going?
I think you do a better Mike impression than Mike does.
Been working on it.
Oh, well, good. It's paying off. We also have Tommy C. from Colorado land.
Yep. Part of the country that keeps saving Europe's butt every so often.
Uh-oh.
Shots
I'm gonna have to do
fired.
it again.
I knew this wouldn't be a civil podcast, civil discourse. All right, and then as we said before, Andrew Cox, the guy that was on the very first podcast, I don't know, probably the first like 10 or 15. But so he got us off the ground, he got us in flight, and then he jumped out and threw his parachute. But he pops back in every now and then.
I was the annoying guy that met you guys all at Las Vegas. That was the first one for me. Was still when they had the it was like a mixed one. Like Ubiquiti was there, Mikrotik was there, all this other guy, like all these other vendors and stuff. I think it was a Whisper Palooza.
Palooza?
I think it was a different one.
Well,
okay,
I think it was wasn't that the year that Ubiquiti did theirs? And
Yeah.
Dovetailed right on the end of Mikrotik's picking up.
Yeah, they gave out all those free cameras and stuff, and I remember smuggling like an extra one out to the Mikrotik guys. Like, check this out. Here you go, research and development.
Oh my gosh!
That year Mikrotik gave out. I forget what it was. I think it was the first time they made a router board that had a built-in Wi-Fi, like in those like big white
The Happy
boxes.
Lights or something?
Oh no, it was like didn't have names yet. It was just like
It was the WAP.
The original WAPs.
it was like the I'll have to look it up, but yeah, it was like the RB751 or something like that. I think is what it was.
I'm not sure which
Those Happy Lights.
as I say, I'm not sure which mom I met Mikey at, but I knew him. I think before I don't know. Maybe I knew Andrew first. I met Mike through so JJ Boyd introduced me to Justin Wilson, introduced me to Mike, so that's how I met him. Tom Smith met him through Giannis Megas at the Mum in New Orleans. Andrew Cox, he found me through my blog and was contacting me, and then found out I was going to
myself in the middle of everyone else.
I know the Vegas one. That's where I met you in person, and absolutely fell in love with your accent. And then Tommy C. Which mom was it that we met at? Okay, Austin for the first time. All right, well that wasn't that long ago. That was only like 2019. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm the little
Yeah,
baby
yeah.
in the
You're
group.
the young one. And then Nick Arellano, that was the Baltimore mom. That was the first time we met.
Yeah.
I'm sensing a theme here. I'm just meeting everybody at the mums.
They're great places to meet people at.
Oh, definitely, you know.
Look, a lot of people have met my mom. Wait, no. Mom, if you're watching this, I'm so sorry.
Oh my days! All right, well let's get the the needful out of the way really quick. So we are brought to you by Sonar, scalable, intuitive, and comprehensive ISP billing and operational support system. I said port system. Learn more at Sonar.Software, and I refuse to go back and edit that. And then we also have towercoverage.com. Tower Coverage is your RF propagation system to empower your network, real-time data metrics, enable your coverage area, reaching your customer base, and more. The industry's best RF propagation mapping system allows website integration for customer sign-up and pre-qualification. Use this data to scientifically plan network expansion and help your WISP succeed. Get a free trial today at towercoverage.com. Excellent. So we got that out of the way. We also have no new patrons, but you go to patreon.com/brotherswisp. You sign up, you get access to the patron-only Slack. So these guys, these rare faces that you see more occasionally pop up in the Slack. So if you want to get a hold of them, you can probably find them in there as well as me. At the end, we're going to give you specific ways to contact them directly. So whenever you want a good serenade, you can call Tom Smyth, or a good dad joke. Do not call Andrew Thrift Andrew Cox, because they will not be good. I was going to say you should call Andrew Thrift instead, because he's actually got some pretty decent dad jokes that don't make me die a little whenever he tells them.
He has a similar accent to Andrew Cox.
Mm-hmm.
I heard
sorry,
go on.
There's all New Zealanders just love to hear. Are you from Australia? So just ask him, is he from Australia, living in Australia? Just to wreck his head a bit. Hi, Andrew.
The way I've learned to tell the difference between a New Zealander and an Australian is to ask them to say the word shed. Because people in New Zealand say sheed, going out to the sheed. I'm not sure why, but that's the only word that I can differentiate.
Or Windows XP.
Wandos. Oh my gosh. Oh my days. So I'm looking at our list of stuff here, and it is very heavy on Tom Smith's very favorite product, Mikrotik. So we'll just let that float in the air. Oh, the sheer silence. I wish I could look at your expression there every morning as my daily affirmation. That will sustain me all the way through till lunch. That was so delicious.
I forgot to mention, for a limited time, if you become a Patreon subscriber, Tom won't send you his nudes.
Oh my days. And Tom, don't ask me to edit that out, because I think we all know it's true.
And well, well, the good news is that the NSA doesn't harvest dick pics and all that. So that's so your dick pics are safe.
Well,
from the
aren't you
NSA.
supposed to send them to Facebook now, so that they can determine if your nudes get out or whatever?
if it's big enough or correct.
Misinformation.
I'm not sure what kind of AI training they're attempting.
Nope.
Oh my gosh.
Well, we have so back on topic. This is probably one of the
we are on
fastest
topic.
patches.
Excuse me, Tommy. We are on topic. Sorry, go on ahead.
Where my heart is and lies for at least a while longer is Mikrotik and their bloody patch notes for V7. So we've got 7.2 RC2 and RC3 came out mere hours later.
About 5, I think.
Let's see. Yeah, it looks like 5.5 hours and 5.5 hours and 3 minutes. So RC2 had a boatload of fixes. It's just fix. And then RC3 was 2 fixes that were introduced. One was introduced in RC2. So from the sounds of it, I've heard most people are saying that IPv6 has been fixed. I know I was asked a couple times by people about that particular issue, throwing that in, and then we've just have a lot of nice things. So, and we're definitely marching slowly towards having a we have Winbox added MLAG support. So we're marching towards a probably stable V7 that people can really use in most situations sooner than later, which is going to be extremely exciting in my opinion. I'm already using it everywhere, but that's foolish. Do not do that. Please do
Test
do
the features you need first. I'm using it at home as well, so
I'm going to try to be measured and dispassionate. Sorry, John, but John Tully, that is, big shout out to him. But one of the things I'd say is if you have as many features and as many hardware supported platforms as Mikrotik has, your testing workloads has to be absolutely mammoth to actually get it right to testing. To be fair, the OpenBSD crowd would be the other extreme, where it's like they call it feature-itis, as in the features, unless it's absolutely needed, is actually not it's almost like a security risk. While in fairness, Mikrotik, to be fair, it is quite flexible, and sometimes its flexibility is like, for instance, if you have a sniper rifle, I believe flexibility in the barrel is not quite a good thing to have, or something like that. So I think flexibility is useful and is good, and in fairness, Mikrotik has that. And I remember opening it for the first time, Jesus, back in 2005, 2006. And it was an impressive system and what it could do. And look, they've put a hell of a lot of development into it.
We had fun back then.
But yeah, I think they're testing. I don't think the effort is huge. The effort required to test all their features is huge, and I don't think they've quite got there yet in terms of their ability to test that. That said, as you said, Tommy, it is impressive that they managed to do a patch within 5 or 6 hours, and look, that can often be just like, oh, it doesn't compile proper, or there was some off by one error or something like that, or there was an issue with compiling on a particular platform, or they spotted it early, and that's pretty good, and being able to actually rush out a patch, that's good. Like, and shit happens. Like, I mean, how many of us have done a config change that was, let's say, less than perfectly conceived? I did it.
Config changes in there to fix it.
So to be fair to Mikrotik, it is a difficult thing to test systems with such. Look at the amount of features. Look at the amount of permutations. Look at the cruel and unusual ways we challenge the configurations. We go, I wonder, can we? And there's certain things we do that just because we can doesn't mean we should on a Mikrotik. And that's
Are you going Jurassic Park on us? Is that the idea?
I pretty much say, look, I think some people, like, I've gone into configs and, like layer 7 configs on a firewall, and I'm asking and they're saying it's a little bit sluggish, and I'm like, really, you think? And then you look at they're trying to do millions of packets per second throughput, and you're kind of going, well, you have a layer 7 rule here that says it takes 1.7 seconds to process, and you want to process that amount of packets, and you have that rule stuck in the middle of your firewall rule set. God love the poor firewall. I think it should get him. That's Purple Heart shit right there. That CCR 1036 should get a Purple Heart. Just wounded in battle, and it was administrator error. Someone asked Mikrotik. Someone in Mikrotik said, "Hey, we can do that." And then anyone else who's used them in the wrong place has regretted it. But then, to be fair, Mikrotik just gave you the facility to shoot yourself in the foot. they didn't actually shoot you in the foot. You chose to shoot yourself in the foot. So there has to be a balance there. So I think I'm being absolutely fair there. I don't think I've libeled anyone or damaged the reputation.
Tom, I feel like sometimes you're like a movie that I've walked into halfway through, and I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. Like, I mean, it seems interesting. Well, I'm engaged. I'm just confused.
I have to say, like, since sort of early V6, when we got the stable release tree, the long term, and the testing of development branches and stuff, there has been a lot less of those. Oops, we rolled out a new version, and everyone updates and goes, I can't access my router anymore, or this is entirely stuck. Like, that's being able to sit on that long term one and sort of test stuff that you have easy access to on the stable release tree. That has been, for me, amazing. Like, I haven't lost access to a router as a result of an upgrade in a very long time.
Yeah, or like a tanked upgrade or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
That is positive. I suppose, and I'm saying this to be, I do think, though, it's misleading the tree, like, because, you know, the long-term
stable still gets new features.
Tree. It's literally selected. It's selected updates from the stable / you know what I mean? So it's slightly misleading. Now, don't get me wrong, I do like the fact that they picked the one that caused the least amount of hassle and they put that in the long-term tree. But it's still, you know, it's not exactly like, oh, we're not going to change this except for patches branch. It's not that, you know. That said, look, I would agree with you, Andy. You know, stuff like that. And in fairness, version 7 is the, you know, it's unicorn territory, you know, and it's the new, you know, it's the I don't know who made that sticker meme for version 7 with the unicorn, but and now it's actually here, you know, thanks to the wonders of genetic engineering, we now have unicorns and stuff like that. So look, it is and you're going to have with that new development problems with when they release new software, you know, and like I was looking at VXLAN stuff and I was hoping that I would use it, but they're using it with multicast, so it's a multicast VXLAN type setup, as opposed to, let's say, head-end replication or, you know, something like that. So because I was hoping to use it with the likes of Arista, so I was kind of a bit disappointed I couldn't, you know, migrate to that. The one key reason to go to V7 was the VXLAN support. So I'm hoping. So John Tully, if you're listening, do me a solid, get me a VXLAN that works with Arista. I know that's going to be 7.3. I bet that's going to come out.
Well, to be fair, you're not the first person I've heard grumble about VXLAN doing it via multicast. So it's not a unique experience amongst people that I've seen talking about it, at least.
Yeah, like it's just the you know, to implement multicast routing just to support that would be it's a bit, you know, it's an additional complexity that you'd rather not have to implement. You know, just have an IP routing underlay, simple like OSPF or IBGP plus eBGP or whatever, would be preferable. You know, also, you know, V6 issues, I'm not too worried. I think the 10 people that use it, you know, they can live with. They can live with it.
I think Nick Bralia would fight you like right now.
Oh well, no, Nick. Like, look. I'm not. Look, I'd actually like to use it, but it's like having another ISP.
All right. Well, let's take a look at the changelog really quick and pick out some things that you actually like. So for me personally, I'm looking at all the stuff they've added into Winbox, which I think is nice because thus far, like with the version 7 features, like they've been really lagging behind like CLI with Winbox parity. So they're starting to play catch up and get some of that stuff in there. So like 0 tier is going to be available. So you're going to be able to see all that stuff, which I have had a lot of fun utilizing 0 tier. I don't know if you play with it or not. Well, yeah. Erlana's digging it for sure. I want to see it hit like the CHR stuff. Like I want to be able to install it in a VM and actually use that on my zero tier. So, you know, because I want to be able to, you know, like pull it into a data center without actually having like a piece of hardware. Or, I mean, I guess you could always spin up like a Linux VM in that instance and run zero tier on that and bridge through there. But, you know, if you want to like stick with one homogeneous thing, it would be nice. What else have you guys seen that you like?
Let's encrypt support.
Yeah, that's super useful,
Oh,
especially with
that hit this one?
HTTP API.
Very nice.
It's yeah, the only weird part about it at the moment for me is the fact that you still sort of have to expose HTTP access to the device to get that to work. So to my way of thinking, it should almost just turn that on for the purpose of doing the renewal and then be able to turn it back off again. And as such, I've written my own script to say, when I do that for the 60 seconds that I need it, allow access to the outside world, pull it back, because I don't want to leave HTTP access to my routers to just anyway. And you can't easily create a list of, oh, these are the Let's Encrypt servers, like the addresses and stuff change. So.
Yeah, so to my knowledge, Let's Encrypt usually creates a certificate one of two ways. One is like the HTTP challenge, right, where you have to be able to directly get to it, or you do it via DNS. So you basically say, hey, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go update my DNS server so that you can do the verification through that means. And I guess they're doing it the HTTP method, huh?
You can do DNS verification. There's now ways to do with like certbot and things like that. If your DNS provider supports it, you can use an API key. So, for example, in a lot of web servers and stuff now, you'd have your Cloudflare API key, and it's just allowed access to that one domain, so it can go and create the verification record. I think that would be a good addition to it as well, because then there's no need to expose HTTP.
Yeah.
You can still update your certificates for your SSTP server or for your local connections and stuff.
Yeah, I would dig that.
And not have to worry about that. So, or even
is it like the Acme client? Is this on the like an Acme client on the Mikrotik routers, basically?
Yeah. So you can do it for, by default, it uses the cloud DNS name of the device, but you can specify your own DNS name and generate a certificate for that. Very, very handy.
No, I'd agree with the in terms of the attack surface reduction. The one thing I noticed is I don't know if that's going to change, but you know, all the packages, there's no like, oh, I can turn off this, I can turn off that. They're all just there. You know, it's so from my kind of like, well, I don't actually need any of these features, so can I turn them off? Would be nice, but you know, I suppose it's a first world problem. I think they want to get, you know, the features working right, you know, with the new OS and the new, like, in fairness, it is completely written from the ground up, so it's going to be very difficult. It must be difficult to port all those features across, you know, and I can't have it both ways. As someone who's complained about the routing engine in 6, to then say, well, why isn't all the features of that working in 7? And it's like, well, they rewrote it, Tom, so give it time, you know. So, yeah, no, I think, look, I do, you know, I do, like, we do have healthy discussions about Mikrotik internally in the office, you know, and you know, I would like to kind of give the root OS BGP engine another run and just see how it behaves. And I think, in fairness, they have put an enormous amount of effort into it, so it's probably worth giving it a try. If let's say, you know, in my case, you know, I found it difficult the version 6 routing engine, but. So yeah, I think it is worth trying it out. I think they have put a lot of effort in, as Tommy was saying there. Yeah, and in the IPv6, like the next hop routing and all that, and the recursive lookup is all resolved. Just with Nick, I think you were saying that a while back ago, or were you informed that? You know, the OSPF and the next hop route resolving, the recursive next hop resolving in version 6. There was some issues with that before. Let's say in the old version 6, next hop recursive lookups were not working in V6, IPv6 in version 6, and so you know, so if you were doing eBGP with, you know, where you weren't resetting the next hop. It would actually you wouldn't actually validate the routes, so you wouldn't actually use them in V6. So I think that's been resolved in version 7, or maybe it's been resolved in version 6 already, but certainly the IPv6 routes. Sorry, I'm confusing people with the V6 and V6. So version 6 IP and version 6 of the root OS. But yeah, look, it's positive. I mean, I played around with it. I do like, I have loaded it up on the 4011s, which I actually have to say I like the boards.
Does that hurt you to say that?
No, I think credit where credit's due. I think, to be fair, like I do express my opinions quite graphically sometimes. Much to the offense of some people in Latvia. But to be fair, when they get something right, like I've liked the 1100A HX4s. I like they've been for the price what they do, they've been quite stable. And certainly the 4011 and the one where Yanis is talking, the new 5011 or whatever number
5009.
Yeah.
509. That one. That's the one where Yanis is holding it with his massive arm. Check out his guns and shout out to Yanis there. So we got a few of them in to test out for NTUs, for business deployments and stuff like that.
Feels like we might see a bigger one of those with wireless or something. Like, given we've had the 2011, 3011, 4011, now we've got the 5009. Looks like
if you've got the 5009, it doesn't have enough letters after it. Oh, yeah. Really, think about it.
Yeah, you need to add the 2G, 5A,
the alphabet soup.
Yeah. I'm waiting for when they start using the Greek letters.
Run out.
They'll probably have to introduce that for the 100 gig interfaces.
There's something important to remember too with this whole conversation is Mikrotik's staff is probably the biggest it's ever been development wise. And if you follow the company at all or look at their job postings, they're still actively hiring for C and C++ programmers. They have a full-time position open for a routing specialist specifically for software testing and technical support. They have another technical support position open. They've got an IoT embedded systems programmer job open. So I think they're fully aware of the issues that they have. I think their development pace has been faster than it's ever been in the history of their company. So once they do actually hit a stable...
Are you asking them for a job?
Huh?
Are you asking them for a job?
No, I just like to follow them. Like if you have that much production kit...
I was just messing.
Yeah, if you have that much production kit, it's good to know where they're at. I mean, I was even watching them when they were doing training sessions, and I saw there was some Agile and Jira training before they opened their the new wiki, the new help page. They were doing trainings in their facility. So I think some of Mikrotik staff were doing some Agile training as far as how they handle tickets going forward, the development cycle. So I'm fairly confident, especially with the next topic we have on here, about for some reason Mikrotik decided it was a great idea to start a TikTok. So I have a feeling they've got
a big fan.
so between that and the developers that they have, the development cycles that they're going through. I mean, even when I was looking in the Mikrotik Slack, one of the brothers, they got 7.3 RC5 or something. So development wise, they're already quite far ahead. So I'm curious where that's going to go. But I think once it's stable, and they've got all this social media and video recording stuff, I think they've got a ton of products just waiting and sitting. They don't have chips for to manufacture. So I think this is going to be a different Mikrotik pretty soon here. They've probably picked up a ton of momentum in this downtime. During the
what's interesting too is I remember them saying that that they didn't need a market, right? Just word of mouth was good enough for them, and they always did that. And if they're putting out TikTok and all this other stuff, to me that says they've actually purchased a marketing department. I mean, they're at least outsourced. Well, they don't really outsource anything though, do they? They bring all that stuff in house. So they've.
It's all in house. They hired in one of the YouTube videos, one of the people that was in the video, their job title was for the video marketing stuff. It wasn't even
all right. So they're joining the 20th century.
Yeah, it looks like they got
No,
good
and
camera.
in fairness, the video quality was pretty good, and the special effects with things appearing in their hands and stuff like that. No, but it was actually pretty well put together, and it is welcome development. And look, when you meet the guys from Mikrotik, genuinely they are a pretty good bunch to meet, and I might have my arguments with John Tully, in which John is wrong and I'm right, and that's always going to be the way.
We'll clear that.
I don't know. John is from the greatest nation on earth, so it's kind of hard to argue with him.
Well, you mean like Texas? Just to clarify. No, but like it is like so like, but it is improving, and I have to say the new YouTube channel, and even like as I think Nick, you were saying that they have it all in-house, and I think one of the ladies that was on, she's involved in logistics, and she would put off the floor having a chat with and talking about the router as well. So it's kind of cool that they're, I suppose, giving their own staff a chance to kind of expand on what they're doing, and that is pretty nice, and it's nice to see the lads, develop as well. The guys, I've been watching it from a distance, like stalking them slightly, but like, and I wish them well, It's and I do hope V7 is the version that things get fixed and it's not promised in the next release, and I mean that not in a negative way, but it's a genuine wish for it. And in fairness, I think the fact that it's been so long in development is a very positive thing. I mean, that it's taken a long time for them to do it right, and anything well worth doing doesn't happen overnight. Let's be straight up about it, So, and I really do hope and wish the guys well even just from a friendly point of view and not a commercial point of view. And I really hope to God they prove me wrong in so many ways and do really well at it.
Just as a note just as a note, I hadn't noticed this before, but there's a fix for MD5 authentication. I know that a lot of guys have been having issues between ROSv7 to V6, and that's probably the fix. Is
OSPF or is it OSPF on ours?
Yeah.
Okay. Not BGP.
Having sort of seen and known many of these guys via the forums, like then meeting them directly over the years at mums and things, it's sort of funny to me to see all these videos coming out now of the different ones being put in front of the camera, as you said, and part of me is like, they finally unchained Normus from the support desk and let him just go and do what he wants to, like create content, make videos.
We all knew he was destined to be a YouTube celebrity, so
yeah. With that
video production quality. The video production quality has been very good as well, to be fair. It's not like Tom holding this and...
Oh, you're talking about like your OnlyFans? Yeah, it's way better production value. Agreed.
Oh, you remember. Yeah, I thought it was cool because they did a video on like IP video, like multicast, and they were actually streaming their professional video feed through it in that video. So it's like they've got a video lab of where they're piping the recording stuff to different like displays and monitors, but they were putting it through the Mikrotik routers, and they were kind of showing how to use like the multicast like IPTV type functionality, and they're like putting their own raw video content through it in the video. I thought that was kind of cool. So
I'd like to think that in the background there, someone's like got to doing that, and they're like, "Oh, we found this bug, but wait, have we found this one? Okay, it's sorted. Cool. Now we can make the video."
Don't worry about it. We'll fix it in post. Just keep going. It'll be great. So while we're talking about Mikrotik and about improvements, I saw somebody put a screenshot in, and I don't know. I mean, it seems a little early for April Fool's Day, but they said something about Mikrotik having a Discord server up. I was just curious what you guys thought as far as good idea, bad idea that would be there.
I think it would be better than sort of some of the other ones that are unmoderated and just devolve into chaos.
Like our Slack channels,
like Telegram groups. Yeah, there's a couple of Telegram groups and Discord channels I'm part of that discuss RadOS, like Mikrotik, among other things. I think it would be good for them to have something like that, and they could make interactions with it as well. So if you needed to, look up something, you can tie that into the Discord API. So trying to search for something, it gives you an instant suggestion, or trying to find when a device's warranty expired, rather than going through the process of logging in, searching, blah blah blah. You can have a lot of additional functionality there to tie in. Same way people can do with Slack and Microsoft Teams and stuff, but Discord would be a fun one. They could also stream the mums over there as well, which would be good.
Oh yeah.
You think they should try and do virtual mums?
I think it's a bad idea.
I don't think it'd hurt.
Yeah, and seeing as we've been 2 years without them.
So I think I overrode Nick. You don't think having a Discord server would be a good idea?
Not right now. So like I think Discord is great because if you've got a community of people that you want to get in a chat system, even though Discord's very gamery, the way that you can organize channels and stuff, it's a lot cleaner than having to pay for premium on other chat services. But I think if you look at the forum as an example, I think if they open a Discord server, it's just going to be a flood of messages and tagging the Mikrotik support staff in the Discord channel, to the point that they'd probably have to keep themselves offline so people don't try to blow them up in the Discord. I think they should probably wait on actually stabilizing version 7 before they just get bombarded in their own Discord channel. I just from other like developer Discord channels and groups, just seeing the smaller communities, how people just blow up the moderators or the people who own the server to get support through that avenue. It might be a lot more trouble than it's worth, especially right now until they stabilize version 7.
It also makes me...
If we can ban fanboys, I think that would help as well, because if you say something remotely critical, you get these lads, oh, why don't you just leave us alone? And I'm just like, whoever said that to me on the forum... Sorry. But life's too short. Now, don't get me wrong. If it's a good exchange of technical information, great. And I suppose, look, I have to be there. It requires self-discipline, when you're dealing with other technical people. And I'm saying that as kettle and pot. Me, hi, I'm kettle. Hi, I'm pot. And I'm definitely. I'm definitely black, in terms of, I have blown up on people when they're talking shite. It's a difficult thing. Also, when you're typing in text, you might be having the crack, or you might be genuinely frustrated. And so you might say something that sounds like you're being a dick when you're actually just either frustrated and you're actually asking for help. And I think we've all been there. But then we've also been the ones just cracking a joke, and it's meant to the best possible way. And then someone blows up on you, and you're like, oh, for fuck.
Well, I was just thinking from a support perspective. It seems like people are more willing in kind of a chat environment to ask a basic question that could be easily found in 5 seconds if you just look in the forum. Like the answer to it. So instead, I don't know. It doesn't seem like the forum is flooded with the exact same basic question over and over, but I'm willing to bet your chat will.
Oh yeah, it will be. So that alone is going to be.
It's just people will get upset.
It's going to cause people to be RTFM even harder than they already do.
I think you can come up with some ways around that though. You just have to plan it out beforehand. Don't just open a Discord server and be like, everyone come in. I'm part of, for example, the official Helium community has a Discord server, and there is so many channels there for different regions. There's channels for regular support, hardware support. It's done in a way that to me makes sense. You don't just chuck everyone in general, or I need technical support and have everyone sort of asking, why can't I put this IP address on? Because 257 is not an IP address. If it's thought out, I think
so restrict it to those with a forum profile ID of 100 or less.
You can require people to verify coming into a Discord server. So.
Yeah.
So Discord,
that would be
Discord.
one of the benefits.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry.
But
Okay, sorry. Dad joke. Did I take the mantle from Andrew Cox for bad?
Is that what you're attempting to do? Because
I am absolutely, and I think I've been quite
that's
successful.
a fool's errand.
Get dangerous.
I found my new.
My whole life is a joke.
Whoa.
Sometimes when I get up in the morning, they're like, "Oh, what am I doing today?" And I say, "Oh, Jesus, yeah." Sometimes you have to philosophically look at your task list and go, "Really, why am I doing this?" You know. So,
I did want to circle back to a question that Greg had asked earlier about the changelog. I've been out of pocket for a while, a little too busy, but I'm looking through and I see there's one for Bluetooth. So Mikrotik has Bluetooth chips.
Yeah, for the LoRaWAN stuff, they've got Bluetooth and the BLE stuff. So.
Okay.
Yeah, and
what's
like
your favorite
is
from,
it like the asset tag tracking stuff doesn't have some Bluetooth in it?
Yeah, the
KNOT,
yeah, it's all.
So what's your favorite?
Yeah.
Oh no,
what's your guys' favorite from 7.2 RC3 though? If you have to pick one. Yeah.
Favorite? The route filter upgrading when you're from V6 to V7.
No, 7.2 RC3 specifically. Which one's your favorite?
Oh, RC3.
Top of the
Because there's only two.
Q, fixed traffic processing. That would have been important. A really bad day for me because I use Qs a lot.
See, that's what it's confusing to me because you go from 7.2 RC2 with that huge list. It's like in 7.2 RC3 was one of those specifically a major issue that they had to push this out, or I don't understand.
I believe there was that
check in my change.
Traffic processing wasn't fixed. There was something that like if you were using Qs at all, it just completely borked it. I believe is what I heard. But this was a couple days ago, and I was busy this was yesterday, and I was busy in phone calls all day. So, and I didn't install RC2 on anything. So
I think something that could be interesting that I hope they do is when they ramp up the social media presence, is actually do changelog highlight videos or something where they talk about it instead of saying like we fixed traffic processing. So what does that mean? Can you talk a little bit about like what you saw and why it got hot fixed? I hope they start doing stuff like that because man, some of these changelogs are terrible.
Well, I mean, what's the ultimate goal?
Try to do that with.
I'm just curious, like, what's the ultimate goal? Like, why would you want to do that? Is it like I'm seeing this weird issue, and if they speak to that, you're like, oh, that's what that means? Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and upgrade. Is that why you'd want it?
Yeah, I mean, they're already doing TikToks. Mm-hmm. Like these are perfect little TikTok videos. It's just like if you're gonna do a new release, if there's anything that's kind of vague that you don't want to spell out, because I'm not sure how they automate the changelog output, but just make a couple comments or something about it. I think that would be beneficial to people who care.
I'm going to stand up for Mikrotik once in my life again and just say I think it can be difficult. Like if you identify an issue in packet processing and let's say how it processes, let's say, something in the IP header, and you fix it, right? It can have so many other knock-on effects. Like, how would you actually describe to people in detail the possible edge cases? Like, for instance, perhaps your configuration works because of the bug, and then when you fix the bug, now your configuration is screwed. And that happens. I mean, and that's not. I'm not saying it's Mikrotik's fault. But you can actually have dependencies on bugs to actually sometimes you're working through it. You don't have access to, let's say, on-call support from Mikrotik, let's say like attack or whatever, and you get it working. You're not too sure how it's working because it was 4 a.m. when you did it. You're after your 10th cup of coffee. Or something else to keep you going at that hour of the morning, and it's working. And then you go away 6 months, you moved on, and then this patch comes along, which is a legitimate patch to fix a problem, and then it can break it. So to be fair, because of the level they're operating at in terms of the Linux kernel and how a small, innocuous bug fix can have, particularly in the firewall processing and stuff like that, or if they're offloading onto a hardware chip that they have on a Marvel. You can imagine, and this is me putting myself in their feet. I've done it where I'm using OpenBSD. You make a change that it makes absolute sense, the reason why you're making that change. And then in another edge case that you used that particular feature or bug and it worked fine, is now broken. And so it's a difficult one because it's so flexible. How do you document the actual maybe what would be better is any configuration, actually say an affected configuration. Trees would be good, So
that's what I was going to say. Is like, it's probably not going to be for like the people who got stuff working through a bug that they didn't realize. I'm saying this more for like, even if it was like, hey, this is part of the packet flow diagram that was affected by this change, so that engineers who are testing this could identify other bugs. Because obviously in their lab they can't reproduce every production network or an ISP network. So if they were able to take something like, hey, packet processing was busted, here's generally where this specific bug was affecting the packet flow diagram, so that people that are testing this software, other engineers, could identify possible related issues and get bug fixes submitted. So just, I think, more to expedite the people that are actually testing and trying to submit bugs, giving them kind of an area in the software or packet flow process of like where that bug affected things. So it gives people a better map to support more bugs, which will make the software more stable. Because I think a lot of people right now aren't really testing it because everyone's gun shy. There's a handful of people who just always test, I'm sure, but I just think that context would be super useful for other engineers.
Well,
there are a boatload of insane people like me who are running V7 and I've talked to 2 different guys who tried to run V7 on edge routers. And they're like, this is broken. And I'm like, well, it's because this is a known issue and it's going to continue to be broken until they fix it. You shouldn't be doing this here. Yeah, could have made myself hours and hours of diagnostics money consulting, but
Nick made a really interesting point there, and it's something that it kind of struck a chord with me about the documenting in the packet flow diagram, a bug that was being fixed. And one of the things that, let's say in the OpenBSD community that is admirable, now don't get me wrong, the pace of development is slower in the OpenBSD community. Let's just be absolutely, it's apples and oranges we're comparing. But sometimes apples can learn from oranges and vice versa, okay? Even though they're inanimate objects, but I'm moving swiftly on and all that. But metaphorically speaking, but if there's a guy called Ingo Schwarze, he's a German guy. He was really into his documentation and the documentation tools in OpenBSD, and heavily involved in the development of Mandoc language and stuff like that. So, in terms of the man pages and stuff like that. And one of the things that and it was a profound thing he said, if the documentation is wrong, it's a bug. He says, you can actually identify bugs from good documentation. If a developer says, why, function Y does this, and they explain the logic of the function, and if in documenting that and how it works, and it's documented properly, someone reading the documentation go, hang on, that doesn't make sense. It's off by 1, or there's an error. There's a problem with the thought process behind that function. And so with actually good documentation, you can actually identify bugs without ever reading the code if it's properly done. And so when Nick said about the way of targeting or documenting where a bug or a change in the code has been done, that can have a profound impact, and certainly would give people more confidence in terms of regularly updating and being able to test more and make informed tests. So I think the documentation side of things, is probably an area of focus that, It's very unsexy. We're all guilty of it. But we all know that when we actually do documentation on our network, better documentation, we often identify problems associated with our plans that we did on the back of a packet of fags, or on a box that the Mikrotik came in and said, "This is the diagram we're going to do." And then when you're actually doing it, you're kind of going, "I didn't think of that failure mode, or I didn't think of that single point of failure that I need to address." So I think Nick, and this is my first time actually being on the same call as Nick, and I'm a long time kind of stalker in terms of on the Slack channel, so just want to say hi. But I think that's a really good point you make, and it's one. It's easier said than done. Don't get me wrong, and so if anyone has ideas, try and share that with Mikrotik, because in fairness, they do pick up on some good ideas eventually, and in fairness, they get a million ideas, and some of them suck, like the S&B server.
I'm not saying like have them jump into the source code, as cool as that would be. It's just like if you've ever had to like deal with Mikrotik support on bugs, like the first hurdle of the battle is to try to concisely explain to them the scenario so they don't go down the wrong track. And so I think for me, there's been bug requests where I've had to go back and forth, get a sup out, go back and forth. And it turns out for the initial part of the conversation, either the way that I phrased things, or maybe there was a disconnect, plus with the time zone difference a little bit, they weren't looking in the same place on where I was experiencing the bug. And so for me, it would be another tool to say, hey, in 7.2RC3, we released a fix around queuing that dealt with packet processing in this general vicinity of the packet flow diagram. Not super detailed, just it's kind of in this area of packet processing. This is the kind of stuff that we found, and this is what we fixed. Because then people who have bugs that are open, that they're still kind of going through that troubleshooting point of view, could potentially say, oh, wait, I think my problem is in that vicinity. Maybe I can poke Mikrotik support and say, hey, you guys released a patch for this. This sounds kind of similar. I think there's a lot of situations where that context could help bring those support tickets closed faster, given that context. Because some of this is vague, but if they were just like a little bit more detailed on kind of where this was happening and what other facilities in the router might be affected, I think it would make it a lot easier getting through that support, getting it closed, and getting the software stable.
Yeah, while you're mentioning support tickets and resolution and getting to the source of the problem, Andrew Thrift gave me a good piece of advice a good while back, and I've successfully utilized it since then. Is he basically said, if you've hit a bug, you've got a problem of some sort, make a video. Just like do a screen capture, record what you're doing, all of the steps, and then provide them all of that stuff. And I found you get to resolution a lot quicker, right? It kind of cuts out some of the maybe language barrier, or maybe some of the ambiguity in what I'm saying, kind of helps just show them what I'm trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A heavily amount of pictures and documentation to show them exactly what you saw and how it breaks is super critical, and the idea of the video was a really good idea. I had to go find myself some video screen recording software for that, but it's super good, useful. Have any of you guys looked at followed the new what they might be announcing in that TikTok
there's no direct follow-up with any more information than that really terrible camera angle.
Yeah, you can't really see anything.
They're gonna go tease crazy now that they have TikTok.
I hate that. I don't have time for that. I want to know what's coming so I can dream about it.
Dude, I have a problem with TikTok right
now. My youngest loves TikTok, and I have avoided it thus far, although I occasionally see stuff linked from there. But I know Nick Arellano is falling down the TikTok hole, and apparently you too, Andrew.
My algorithm is very fine-tuned for my sense of humor at this point, so I don't really share what's on there.
Oh my gosh.
I hear it helps with the attention span,
Sorry, if you want to waste a whole day, yeah. If you don't want to sleep, great. But now I can get product hints, so.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be glorious and terrible at the same time. Speaking of attention span, though, get your Linux boxes updated again. There's a new vulnerability for, it's not remote code, it's if the Linux device has a user on it and they can do something to break it and get themselves root really easily. So
it's just
update
root.
that. Yeah, just root. Yeah.
Huh.
So once again, let's see.
What service is this? PW? I forget it, but it's equivalent to sudo back in the day.
Yeah, it was another version of sudo that is apparently pretty popular that I've never used.
It's in Debian, CentOS, Ubuntu. It's in all of them apparently, which is kind of...
Yeah.
I presume it's a System D kind of daemon or something like that. So I'm just going to move swiftly on. But yeah, like it is patch central, you know.
Yeah.
But
what I said to when I first saw that was I recalled a coworker of mine from back when I worked at Office Depot who insisted that Linux was more secure because Windows is always having to fix security patches and Linux rarely. You know, we have so few of those. And I really hope he's doing system administration right now and is having to live through having to do those updates emergency style. So looking back in the day.
A little secret on that too is most of these exploits aren't in your face. They're exfiltration and they just sit on the system. Like who knows how many machines are exploited just because it's not in your face. I mean, stuff gets hacked all the time. I mean, even stuff like Log4j, those types of vulnerabilities. Who knows how long those were out in the wild and how long they've been exploited. When you look at, government bodies and stuff, they've got access to systems. I mean, there's some systems China's been in that's like years and years and years just sitting there, idly collecting information or just waiting. So nothing's safe. So take precautions.
Home, how many Mikrotiks are still part of the Mirror's botnet?
Yeah. Or other, in fairness, other routing vendors and stuff like that. But and in ways, to be fair, what was Blue? What was the CIA program, the one to crack? But if you wanted to crack, that's what intelligence services do, is they try to get up on because they don't like kind of saying, hey, can you bug this drug lord's phone? They'd rather just bypass the corrupt government and bug the phone themselves, which that's what they do. And with all those billions being spent on the NSA/CIA, you'd want something to show for their actions. So at least they were, being productive and in that regard, obviously, but like in terms of, it's actually a testament in ways to Mikrotik's popularity that. They actually dedicated a team to actually get tools to get up on Mikrotik gear, particularly because they're quite prolific in developing countries and in South America and Asia. So it's an ideal platform. If you want to get up on people's internet communications, I mean, it was strategically made sense for. The American government to do that, and any other government who probably did it and just didn't get caught, but it's actually in ways a problem of success. People attacked Windows. Do you remember when we used to think that PDFs were secure because they never, viruses were never transmitted with PDFs? And then it was then people started using PDFs more.
Most of us didn't live with the dinosaurs, Tom.
Pardon?
Most of us didn't live with the dinosaurs.
Oh well, well you see now. Look, I maybe just 40.
Tom is my age, dude. That hurts. That's a deep cut right there.
That was rough.
Water off a duck's arse.
And you old guys, guys.
Yeah.
Look,
thinking PDFs were secure, safe. You fools.
Moving swiftly. Or the man you feel for the ladies on the channel as well, or anyone else. Moving swiftly on. Can we just cut that?
You mentioned the American government. We can transition to that. That's the big new news for this week for us Americans, and probably will be the world will have to follow along in some form or fashion here soon, is that we're going to get nutrition labels for our internet service.
I saw that posted somewhere. I didn't read anything into it. What is that? What does it mean?
It's been something that various activist groups have been kind of pushing for, and 2015, 2016, sometime in there, there was the FCC put out a, hey, would you guys mind doing this? It'd be great if you would. We'd really like it. And basically the idea is just a breakdown of what all the costs are, what the speed is, in a kind of standardized format, so that people don't get hooked into like a 1-year contract where then it doubles in price or something like that after the first year or something. A lot of those, or like huge installation fees that they weren't expecting, stuff like that. I mean, it's more regulation, so
it's like a apples to apples comparison. Is that how, like, for a consumer? That's the idea.
That's what they're trying to go for. Yeah. Supposedly there's supposed to be like latency stuff, which is going to be absolutely hilarious to see how that boils out. And it's going to be absolutely terrible for the satellite and internet service providers. Oh, I feel so sorry for them. Other than Starlink, in which case that's going to be a very interesting world. But
no one feels sorry for Starlink.
It's going to be. Yeah, no. So, but for WISP too, like, it's going to be interesting seeing exactly how this boils out and like what their actual requirements are and what that looks like. There's lots of like pictures of like what this looks like, what the ideal is. And there's even a website that back in 2016, because nobody did the nutrition facts stuff, they made their own for all the major ones in the United States. It's going to really depend. I think it's the onerousness of it is going to depend on what their requirements are and how that enforcement looks like. Because, I mean, for me, in my wireless network, latency could vary pretty widely between, okay, all right, I've got my fiber stuff, and they're right next to my head end, and so they go right out on transport down to Denver. Their latency effectively could be under 2 milliseconds for some services, but do I have to measure some services on average? How am I supposed to measure that? How am I supposed to show that difference for the wireless side? If I have a portion of my network that I've extended out just because I've got 5 customers off in the corner, do I need to create a label for them just because, latency is for them is going to be 10 milliseconds higher because I'm not using a full duplex backhaul over
probably be an average across all customers, huh?
Then that sucks. Then who wants to run point to multipoint wireless? Fixed domain?
I think sometimes what happens, like what we're seeing in Europe, is this ECC code that came in, Electronics Communications Code, and it was basic consumer code. Sorry, Electronic Communications Consumer Code. I think too many C's, being honest. But and the way they were doing it, the way the regulators have kind of been approaching it is, what's the typical user experience, leaving aside statistical anomalies, so like, spikes through, boosters and DDoSes and stuff like that. But what's your typical latency, and if, like, one thing is that if you have TDMA and wireless, you can relatively predict it, let's say you're typically around 23 milliseconds kind of with a Cambium TDMA system, fiber backed or backed by a licensed link to the base station back to your and they've things like, for every 100 kilometers you add another millisecond, so you've allowances. So if you're nationwide in the United States, I believe, looking at the map, you're slightly bigger than Ireland, so you'd probably have more than 100 kilometer stretches across your states, or 200 kilometers. So for each one of, so if you're nationwide, you can, you obviously have you get an allowance. So, you'd have targets to reach in terms of your performance. But for every 100 kilometers of fiber between cities, there's an additional millisecond, because apparently the speed of light is not infinite, and it has a limitation, allegedly. But yeah, so I think it's what they tried to do is codify it to stop the abuse of the likes of, you get these bigger carriers and they say, hey, you get a gigabit, and then you do a speed test and you get 200 megs. You have a gigabit along with 1,000 other people. So, it's to reduce that type of false advertising, bluntly speaking. And I think we'd all kind of support that. And also, yourself that your fixed wireless service can often be much more superior to a fiber service where frankly speaking, the operator is doing traffic shaping that's not transparent, that they're not being net neutral, or they're not being. I'm not saying net neutrality is all perfect, and I think me and Greg have once or twice crossed swords on it. Of course, I won.
Right.
That's why he has that mustache now, But you actually see, the way we had to do it was, we recently updated our terms and conditions on our website, and in the regulator I declared, I said, look, we don't do traffic shaping except for areas of congestion. So in the event of a failover to a backup link, we're going to do. We only do prioritization based on the traffic type. So it's not a commercial decision; it's a technical decision. So VoIP gets priority, network control traffic gets first priority, second VoIP, third, web traffic, blah blah blah, RDP, and then and you go down, and then FTP, BIP, torrent, and all that is. So we don't do any. It's to cut out what the Europeans were more worried about was ISPs throttling other ISPs' services across their network to disadvantage them. So I believe there may have been allegedly, my lawyer helped me phrase this one, that Comcast allegedly were throttling allegedly the Netflix traffic in so that that they could advance allegedly their own IPTV solution. And so what I declared to the regulator in Ireland was, hey, look, we don't throttle anyone. If we need more bandwidth to a particular ISP, we get it. We don't do any commercial. There's no commercial advantage sought by not peering with someone, and we do try to peer, and we encourage other people to peer with us on the neutral exchange peering points, and that's how we've done it. And we believe, and maybe this is the engineer in me talking as opposed to the commercial side of me. But I believe it's my job to get a good path between the neutral exchange peering point and my customer. And if I do that, I'm doing good. So if someone has their own TV service that they're, streaming on an Android box from somewhere else in Guatemala, we say, look, can you download a TV from, our national television service, and say, is that going well? Okay, well then it's not our network, it's someone else. It's you're trying to watch a soccer match, a World Cup final from someone's DSL upload connection, and that's why it sucks, not because our network, and so I do think the transparency is good when it's practical, but like what you were saying, nutritional labels does sound a little bit. Also, can customers understand that? So the way
no, they won't. It does hearten me though to hear that the networking issues are the same all throughout the world. As far as sports watching on somebody's DSL uploaded. But I think that's because nobody knows what latency means. Like they have the experience of it takes forever to load Google.
Well, I think the worst part is that a lot of times our customers know more than the legislators do about what latency is too. So right now there's a huge problem because of the pandemic. There's a lot of the United States that is not broadband accessible, and so now there's massive funding. Like they have the EBB program, which is now the Affordable Connectivity Program. They're shelling out billions of dollars to subsidize people's internet. People are working from home. Schools are having to, go remote. And so everyone's getting pressured from a legislator standpoint to try to address the broadband problem. And the WISP that I'm working with right now is in California, and they just released a multi-billion-dollar plan to build out middle-mile fiber across all of California. So a lot of these programs, like the nutrition labels, like the FCC Form 477, these things are trying to give legislators access to information on what is underserved and where do they need to fund to build in this middle-mile fiber to try to give people access to backbone connectivity that you can actually service customers broadband. But unfortunately, the legislators don't know a whole lot about internet technologies, latency, speeds. I mean, I think even now the minimum broadband requirement, I'm not sure if this is official now, but it's supposed to be 100 symmetrical, which is just obnoxious if you look at how much fiber is actually in the ground in a lot of these areas. So it puts people in a weird position, because if you want to compete, you have to try to get funding to some extent, depending where you are and who your competitors are, or your competitors will get funding. So in order to get that funding, and the expectation is to do 100 symmetrical, well, that's a huge undertaking unless you put fiber in the ground. And so, there's all these good technologies coming out that you can get, probably a gigabit download, not so much upload. That's very cost effective, that you can build faster than you can put fiber on the ground. But the legislators don't understand what broadband is, but they know that there's a crisis. And so I think the labels are a way to try to hold people more accountable and to be more transparent to end users. But it's very chaotic based on how much work from home, how much backbone utilization just went way high with people working from school from home. So it's kind of crazy right now.
Tommy raised an interesting point about when you have multiple different services, how do you have your nutritional label? And what I thought the Irish/European approach was interesting was that you had the regulator talk with the ISP and said, show us your terms and conditions, show us your quality of service, show us your quality of service commitment to your customer. What are you doing for your customers, and are you doing any restrictions on traffic? And I think that potentially may have come from the big tech, as in big tech being limited by ISPs, access ISPs, and potentially. And so, we passed that one with flying colors, because we said, look, we don't do any traffic shaping except for when we're on a backup link and we're constrained for that period of time, and we do it to minimize disruption to our clients. And I think that
you guys do offer,
I believe, is ethical.
Quick question before you go a little bit further, just as a qualification, do you do like different speeds of service as well?
We used to,
or do you just offer connectivity?
We used to, but we have a lot of fiber in our country, right? So, and we have a lot of fiber rolling out.
Must be nice.
And it was initially done with VDSL, so it ended up being that, the way the national carrier did it, Air, what they said was, look, if you can get 130 megs on a VDSL connection because you're right beside the cab, off you go. If you can get 30 megs because you're 2 kilometers from the cab, off you go. So that's what we'll give you. So we won't restrict the traffic. And we adopted, and it's worth trying out if you ever wanted to. It's not great for an upsell. So, but in terms of if you are trying to compete with people who are lowball in price in the market, what we ended up doing was just saying, right, we'll give you whatever the technology can. And so, so on our Cambium with a 40 meg channel, we're getting about 250 meg down, 80 meg up. If you're close to the mast, if you're further out, 6 kilometers out, that probably drops down to about 150 to 30 up, so 150 down, 30 up, 23 milliseconds latency, that type of round, right? So it was whatever the technology was, and the theory, believe it or not, was that if someone wants to download a movie or wants to download a game, what I want them to do is download the game and get the F off the network, and not be going to go, let me just clamp you at 10 megs so that you're just going to be taking up your TDMA slots anyway. And so what we wanted to improve, and we wanted to compete. When someone runs a speed test, we wanted to be comparable to a VDSL service or a basic fiber service. And
So for the customers who are further away and can only do a slower speed, how do you prevent them from using up too many TDMA slots on an access point?
Look, it's whatever.
Or do you just put too many access?
So we
more access
subsector,
points out
like
to
so,
handle
like
that?
like we put probably about depending on the type of sector. So if it's not a MIMO capable sector, it's let's say a 3000L would be about 31 customers per access point, and it gets respectable performance, and then 33 on a 3000, and then if it's an old 2000 sector, it would be 19 customers on it because of the. So it's got that kind of subsector. What you actually find
because
is that
I've heard Cambium has much better TDMA system than like the likes of Ubiquiti, Radwin, or I haven't real issues with them.
No,
also,
but the interesting one of the things you find is that as people statistically use more, you find that you have to subsector. It's because you might have 5 heavy users on a sector, and eventually to keep those 5 heavy users happy, suddenly they're now statistically going to be accessing at the same time. So we just subsector to keep them happy. And I mean, it's if you have 15 or 20 people on a sector, deploying another sector with license exempt frequencies is not a big deal, particularly with the RF Elements horns, which I absolutely love. The 30-degree ones, they're pretty good. And so, it works well. But again, then, but there's a cost item to that. And I would say because, look, if you look at the map, and I'm just looking at a map here of my future conquest of the world, first Ireland, then the world, but Ireland's pretty small, so we're lucky that we don't have to transit across the country like your country, like in the US, where you have multiple very commercial. You probably have price gouging if they have a monopoly.
Oh yeah,
we're lucky that we have a lot of American carriers feeding the likes of Facebook and Google and all, and Microsoft and Amazon in Ireland, and so we actually they make their money off those guys, and then they make some handy bit of change from the likes of me, so, and it's quite, and it's easier, but funnily enough, the most expensive part of my network is actually the local carrier, the wholesale backhaul or the mid-mile fiber that Nick was referring to. The last 100 kilometers of fiber is the expensive part of, apart from labor, is the most expensive part of our let's say costs, and so and I suppose we're lucky that we have a lot of bigger carriers serving the country so that we can actually access we've good competition, so it drives down the price of IP transit, so but if the regulator does it with you, I think it makes sense, and if it's in your terms and conditions, so for the people who care can do it. But handing people a statistical sheet, most people, there was an argument made about Jordan Peterson once, and he was using some statistics to make a point, and there was this guy Ken Wilber said it's dangerous to use statistics to try and make a point, because most people are unsophisticated when you talk about statistics. So you might be absolutely correct, but it can be misinterpreted, mischaracterized, and cause all sorts of confusion and hurt.
Okay.
And annoyance. So what's interesting?
Hi, Tom. Sorry. You only get 8-minute straight rants, and then you've got to breathe for a second. I'm curious.
Did I get 8? Was I 8?
No, you were well over that. Hey, Andrew Cox. I know you guys do a lot of interesting stuff with your case. So Australia is great because you guys put in like a big fiber network to connect everything, like the government did that, and then it promptly fell flat on its face, right? So don't you guys have like some regulation and some transparency as far as that stuff goes?
Yeah, so the NBN was started as sold to us as it's going to be a big fiber network, and then the party that was sort of in control changed, and they said, we don't want to spend all this money, and we ended up with a mishmash of them buying some of the old ex-government telcos copper network and coax network and taking on that, and then realizing we've got to pay to upgrade and repair this. But Now we have some regulations and stuff around providers giving their peak time speeds. So you can sell a 100 meg plan, or you can sell a 50 meg plan, or you can sell a gigabit plan, so long as you clarify to the end user what the peak time speeds are. And there's a bit of wiggle room around how you calculate those and everything, but they're pretty close to what you should be able to see. So if you're on a gigabit plan here in Australia, generally your peak time speeds are going to be 200 to 300 meg, because you're still only paying $10 to $20 more than the previous 100 meg plan. So obviously there's not enough money there to support actually giving every one of those people a gig. But it sort of frustrates me, the difference between Australia and the US in that regard, where Nick before was talking about sort of having that requirement for 100 meg, like upload and download. That is something that the company that I work for has done for all of our customers. We've always said it's early days, it was unlimited 100. We called it unlimited because 100 meg was all that the routers could do. Now we're starting to go up to gigabit boxes and stuff, so we can start offering faster plans. We've started branding the other ones as 100 meg. But meanwhile, over in the US, where we're doing much the same business, everyone wants to know that they're going to get a gigabit speed. And you're talking someone that only is spending $50, $60 a month on their internet, and they're, AT&T gives me gigabit. And I remember one specific conversation I was having with this father of 3 children, and he's like, I was looking at your plans. I'm not really sure I can afford the fastest, but I'm just worried that I'm not going to be able to use the internet properly. And I was like, well, hang on a second. Like, what are you doing online? And he's like, we've got like a PlayStation here that I play like in the evenings, and the kids will all end up watching like Netflix or Hulu or something. And I was like, you could easily do that on 100 meg or much less. The only you're ever going to use anything over that is if you're actually downloading a game or downloading a software update, or like, there is nothing in today's market that will fill that up. And I understand if the regulators are trying to encourage people to sort of start at a minimum of 100 because we're future-proofing the network, but I cannot think of a single program that I use daily that will congest 100 meg, even with sort of 2 or 3 people using that same thing. Like this call we're on now is maybe a few megabits. If I'm watching Netflix in its highest quality, that's maybe 4 to 8 megabits. Like streaming uncompressed video down from something like GeForce Now or whatever, 30 megabits. So yeah, that's the only sort of time where I can think you could have 3 people online using this, and then you'd fill up that 100 meg. But everyone's been told, you need faster, you need faster.
The advertising over there in the US is atrocious. Like, it is so bad. Like I even I even see the phone plans now. All the 5G commercials you see, they're all talking about how you're gonna get this crazy speed on your phone. It's like, do you really need?
And I've seen your 5G speed.
Well, I'm just like, do you need a gig to your phone at the park when you're watching like a 320p video for on Netflix on your? Or it's ridiculous at how, I guess. I mean, but you get away with it, right? Because it's an uneducated populace. They only know what you're feeding them, and they're not going to go out. They're not going to go 5 minutes out of the way to Google it to really see what it means.
Just as a quick qualification, Netflix in 4K or Ultra HD UHD speed they recommend 25 megabits per second. And I know if you're above that, you're going to average out about 12 to 15. Because I've had a few customers with the Ultra HD. I've had to do diagnostics, and it's like, this 15 meg plan is not going to be fast enough for you for that. So just as a FYI, they'll downshift, and Netflix is really good about their quality control. Yeah. About downshifting.
There's even a difference if you're in the Netflix help stuff as to what Netflix uses if it knows it's on a mobile network versus what it uses if it knows it's on wireless. I'm about to explain this to people because in very few locations we still have database plans here. So some old places where we just can't get an unlimited feed for some reason, the cost of internet in Australia is still is coming down. It's still ridiculously expensive compared to what you guys are used to. But we still manage to provide people internet connections from sort of $60 to $100 a month. But I had one customer who previously just been on 4G, and I think they had a 50 gig plan on there, and they signed up to the internet with us, and they had a 50 gig plan, and they're like, well, we're only using this on like our iPad and our phone and just watching it from there. But if you look in the Netflix help, it's like, if you're on a wireless network, the stream that it uses is a higher bit rate than if you're on a cellular network. So they were using up their 50 gig and sort of shaking their fists at us, going, "This has never happened when we've been on the cellular provider. You're measuring data wrong." And
also
had to then go through and explain that.
Also, cellular providers can often use likes of traffic shaping, and they'll actually not bill you for traffic to, let's say, preferred partners like Facebook and Netflix and stuff like that. So they can have actually these deals where you're actually, but if you're downloading other video content from other sites, that you are being hit with the plan as well. And then there's the thing of
most of the ones tied into Optus will have some specific provider that's not Netflix, and Telstra has Foxtel and all that stuff. So they're all have their own media providers that aren't Netflix. But
I think
we have the same.
Had his hand up there while Greg was interrupting him earlier.
I was just going to say,
what that means?
What makes this even worse is that I think when I was looking at the proposed broadband requirements for the United States, they were also talking about 100 by 100 without oversubscribing, which is absolutely crazy.
Whoa.
And Mike's in a similar area geographically as me. And so like where I'm at, there's literally a monopoly on dark fiber, specifically where I'm located, that's operated by a company called iFiber, and it's like partnered with the school. And that fiber is not super maintained well, and they have a hard time delivering like a 10 gigabit wave. They always have infrastructure issues. So at that point, it's like, all right, well, in order to build fiber or get a diverse path for myself or anyone in that general geography, you'd have to probably take funding. But in order to take funding, you have to meet the broadband requirements, and you have to sell VoIP, and all those things offer low latency. So it's like, how do you get out of this terrible infrastructure? And so it makes it very difficult when legislators don't understand bandwidth. And these services like Netflix, they understand the problem. They're constantly innovating on compression to make sure that they can get you, better video quality with less bandwidth, because they know that there's bandwidth issues. And so I just think it's kind of wild that there's a huge push for it right now because of the necessity, but the expectations are all over the place, and it's actually really difficult for WISPs, like middle to smaller size WISPs, to actually do something about this unless they can kind of partner with somebody or, get funding that doesn't have all the government requirements as far as the broadband incentives, and let alone VoIP. That's already a whole mess on its own with taxing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so the cool thing for the latest, the big one, I'm blanking on the name for it exactly, but you don't actually have the VoIP requirement anymore. And that oversubscription thing. I was in some of the discussions with people about that. The deeper documentation does not mention that. I
hope not, because that's impossible.
You just have to be able to do so. There's an FCC rule, DA 1047 something or 7497 something like that. I can't remember. But there's already companies like mine who are having to do testing wherein you just have to show that your customers are able to get their speeds at least 80% of the time, 8 times. So you can even fail latency and bandwidth 20% of the time, and you're still going to be able to keep your funding. So, which is which is really good. And it's actually really, really well thought out. There's a few states that are trying to start to adopt that as well. Colorado is one. I actually had to talk to them because they're adopting it wrong. But c'est la vie, nobody cares. But other than like the big fun for like the federal stuff, you need to get yourself a lawyer and get yourself a grants consultant to fill all that out, because if you need a bunch of stuff engineered. If you're they have all sorts of stuff about like if you're anywhere near a historical like site or building, and you're going to be going by that, you have to verify that you aren't going to be harming the historical blah da da of that. And so it's like, so it is very extensive for the federal. That said, if you look more towards the states, there's a lot of state programs that are a lot better oriented towards smaller companies. That the requirements for those are a lot simpler. Now there's less money, but you can, for me, I was able to interact with the state board and ask them questions, be like, hey, I'm looking to do this grant, what is going to be involved in that? And a lot of them are like, their job is just to expand broadband into rural areas. And so it's a pretty quiet, boring job most of the time, and they want to just answer questions for people. If you are looking, I would say start in your local regional government areas, because the Fed ones, and you need to put tens of thousands of dollars into a grant. Just from what I was looking at, it's like, oh my goodness, the requirements.
I'm not doing anything in my specific area now. I'm just using it as an example of what dark fiber is present. Mm-hmm. Based on, like, if you're just coming into it green and you have to like navigate, what is it going to take for me to get government funding to build myself transport? It very quickly becomes impossible, a huge mess. So
yeah, I do have other options in our area, just so you know.
By me?
Potentially.
Maybe I could ping you, because as you know, it's been terrible. But I'm kind of excited about the idea of state or federally funded middle mile as well, to be able to just get a wave somewhere to a data center or to an IX or something, on the condition that they don't go the VoIP taxation route and go to make it more of a utility, and because then it's going to get kind of insane.
Yeah, but none of the federal, no one's funding middle. Well, okay, there are probably some
they're for
states.
Sure. Like I said, California, they're doing it was like $6 or $8 billion for middle mile, and they sent out a survey to all the internet providers asking, where's your current fiber? What do you have connectivity to? So that they know. They have this huge map drawn out across the entire state of California, and they're actually starting construction already. They're dumping billions of dollars for California alone, their own funding, as well as some federal grants, to build this whole middle mile network, so that any ISP or WISP can just get on the middle mile near them and get access to a data center, because the transport costs there are absolutely insane based on the terrain and where the fiber goes. Just getting to a data center is crazy, and all the other fiber is not diverse. It's all on the same trunks because of the terrain. And so
because you have the mountains running right down the middle of your state.
Right. So I like that idea of having access to something that's not privatized and insanely price hiked, paying like, $6,000 or $10,000 for like a short ride of fiber to a data center is kind of outrageous. But if you own all the fiber, that's what they're going to charge.
Ransom strip, yeah. Like in Europe, they're revising the state aid broadband guidelines now. I think I talked at length the last time about it, but I talk at length anyway. but I suppose what I would summarize is, just to clarify, basically in Europe, because the internal market, because you've all these sovereign countries that pool and share a common market, state aid, they didn't want any state aid. So the whole thing about your federal funding and all that in Europe, to try and coordinate between sovereign countries, they said, well, if you want to access the internal market, you need to stick to the rules. And so the European Commission, DG Comp, Director General of Competition, they actually control any state aid, because technically, according to the European treaties, state aid, federal money or local money going into private, from taxation going into private industry, is actually illegal, let's say. And so then they would say, well, how do you achieve political objectives, in terms of solidarity with citizens in rural areas and getting them fiber or getting them high-speed connectivity with wireless. And so they've been redrafting the rules. And just for the European brothers and sisters out there, definitely before the 11th of February, just try and familiarize yourselves with the consultation. There is a lot of rules there. One of the things they're trying to look at is like a gigabit to every household is the target. The minimum threshold for intervention is by default 100 megs. But if there's one service provider in an area that provides 100 megs, the state can still intervene and get fiber in there as long as they can triple the speeds, which I think probably needs to be adjusted. It needs probably to be 5x or 10x, I think, will be the minimum. Because if you can imagine, if you have 100 megs and you're saying you want to triple the speed, then just buy 3 connections. It's not a big, why would you spend billions of dollars to do that? The other issue is they're talking about 20% contention ratio, or concurrency. So, you're talking about 5 to 1. So you have to have capacity for every gig. It's like 5. And we need to work on that. I think is a little bit considering, let's say, in the Netflix statistics in Ireland. So we have a lot of fiber in Ireland. There's 1.9 million. Premises passed with fiber, and the Netflix average customer speeds, peak time, it's all like 3 megs. So you have guys with 500 meg fiber, which is the lowest fiber tier, and they're pulling 3 megabits per second. So you got this type of. So in terms, sometimes I think you're being asked to solve tomorrow's problems today with today's technology, without any state aid, and then they say, if you don't meet those targets, then we're going to pay a competitor of yours to come in and fiber it all up. And so there's a fairness issue there that needs to be addressed. But that said, I have to say the rules are a lot better. I think they're a lot more specific. I think they are favouring the governments a bit more to make it easier for them to intervene. Which, in principle, we wouldn't be against if at least the governments evaluate fairly. But I can tell you that in Ireland, there's about 80 ISPs, and every fixed wireless ISP, every customer of every fixed wireless ISP in Ireland, and we give, a lot of us are giving 100, 150 meg broadband to customers. Not one of our customers was passed as being able to get 30 megs down and 6 megs up. And so they went and said, right, we're going to spend 3 billion euros for 500,000 homes to be built out with fiber, and overbuilding a lot of smaller ISPs in Ireland. So sometimes you can have a fairness issue there, and in ways, I've actually raised a complaint with the Commission about that, actually, because I think it's kind of like the Jimmy Crow laws, in Louisiana kind of thing, where, for voter suppression, and it's literally like, you're fixed wireless, so, you can get me 100 megs. Okay, but what's your latency? What's your concurrency rate? And they do so they added on all these additional evaluation criteria after the fact, if you get me, which was a bit unfair. And also they kind of gave you very little time to actually submit the documentation. And then they go, you didn't give us enough documentation. You're like, dude, you gave us a month. It's kind of like you wanted, and you didn't submit future plans. And they said, yeah, because you said I had to have 7 years future plans. I had to have all the funding in place to be considered. So it was a waste of time. So sometimes you can have these evaluation criteria for state aid that's actually quite unfair.
Sounds to me like you're making an argument for smaller government.
It's funnily enough, you should say that.
Yes, but I shouldn't encourage you. I'm just going to play Greg here.
Podcast 2.
You're just going to let that sit there, and
yep.
Okay, I'll let it sit there and let someone else come in.
We'll talk later.
Plot my revenge.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm willing to take it.
No, in fairness,
Speaking of backhauls,
that's what I like about you, Tommy.
Has anybody used the 60 LR, the Ubiquiti 60 airFiber 60 LR?
The LR or the XR?
Well, the XR hasn't been announced or released yet. The LR.
That's beta.
Yeah. Oh, the XR is beta?
I think I saw it in the beta store. But
oh,
LRs, I've probably got eight or 9 links in.
Okay. How you feeling about them?
They're great. I mean, obviously they do have some fade problems, but California's pretty dry. Latency's very low. Performance is really good. They only have SNMP support on beta, which is kind of unfortunate, but they're pretty rock solid. I haven't had a single issue. I've had some people say that they lock up on them or they disconnect, but none of the links that we have deployed in production have gone down since they went up.
So what is the Mike? I think you're the one who put this in here. What's the special thing that the XR is supposed to give us?
The FCC docs don't go in incredible amount of detail as to features and functionality other than things that pertain to the FCC. But the XR appears to have full 60 gigahertz band support. So from 57 up to 71 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz.
Oh wait, this is another new one then. I thought we were talking about the one that's like 3 gigabit with a 10 gig SFP plus interface with the weird cover on it or whatever. So another one.
Yep, we have another one being announced.
Well, it's been FCC certified. I don't know if Ubiquiti's done anything with it, within their communities or not. Any announcements or EA or anything, but my FCC ID alerts come through.
Can I ask Nick or Tommy, what's the layer 2 MTU that those devices support? Like, can they do full 10K frames or?
I don't think it's 10K, but it is technically jumbo frames. It's enough for most of the transport stuff. I don't know exactly what it is. I'm not sure.
When you say jumbo, do you mean like 2K kind of thing or mini?
2048, I believe.
What?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah,
2048.
Okay. You can do a fair bit of MPLS and tunneling with that. Anyway, nice.
What kind of range are you expecting on these things? I know 60 gig is usually a little bit shorter.
If you don't want to be irresponsible, I would say probably no further than 2 miles, but it completely depends on how much rain you get. One of the things that annoys the crap out of me is if some of the links that we have are longer than 2 miles, but precipitation is very, very low in that part of California, other than a couple crazy storms that just happened because of Mother Nature. But they actually have a distance contest in the UI of the software. So if you're running a link that is like 7 some miles, or even 4 or 5 miles, a thing pops up and it's like, would you like to enter the contest? And they have on their website a list of all the links that have hit distances. And so I know like the business owner got all excited, like let's beat the record. I'm like, how about we don't beat the record?
No.
I think
do you want it to work?
Sorry, go on.
Oh, I was like, for these distance records, like, do you want the link to work? If so, you shouldn't be competing in a distance record.
It's like, why did you bundle it in the firmware to like have that annoying pop up? It's like, enter the contest. It's like, no, give me SNMP.
Like in Australia here, with the amount that it rains, we tend not to run so that the Mikrotik like 60 gigahertz LHGs, and these ones we wouldn't run them over about 2,300 feet. Like that will give you a great connection during a perfectly fine rainy day, and you've still got enough margin that other than the absolute worst thunderstorms, you'll keep it online.
Yeah.
And other than that, like the fact that I remember seeing like Linus Tech Tips got one of them and set it up for his parents' house over like 2.5 miles or something, and I'm like, okay, good luck when it rains. Like
most of the ones that we have that are 2 miles don't go down in the rain, and I think for us it's more that these things are like 10 to 13 watts ish, so like comparatively to like an airFiber 24 or something, like you're getting more bandwidth, even though there's only a 1 gig port on it. But we're talking like the similar wattage to just another like Prism or AP. So when a lot of the sites are solar only and run on battery, we did use a lot of these, and they've been good. But yeah, if you got rain, it's 60, even though they support the upper band. Don't push it.
You're still up a creek.
Don't do the.
I can see.
Yeah.
It's amazing the you know, the difference when if you're going from 57 to 64 gigahertz. You know, the 64 gigahertz obviously gives you, you know, there's a 12 dB, you know, the oxygen absorption getting off that peak, you know, where it's important, like, so, you know, give it, you know, in terms of just your signal quality and everything like that, and giving yourself a little bit more margin, just going up to the higher frequencies. Obviously, and
then, you know, on that LR product, you know, going from 64 up to 71,
it's massive.
You know, you get even more. And now on this new XR, to then have 5 gig in it, I mean, I can only assume it's 5 gig for a backup. You know, well, since you have Bluetooth and 2.4 and 5 gig. I mean, you know. A dual band management radio, unlikely. So it's probably a 5 gig backup.
Yeah.
Come on, this is Ubiquiti we're talking about here.
Well, and that's what's interesting, because the airFiber 60XG, which is in the beta store, is 60 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz backup, with a 10 gig SFP plus port. And it's funny because these products say Terragraph certified on them on the product page, which is absolutely hilarious. So I wonder what's different about the FCC one. I'll have to look at the specs.
I saw 4 gigabits per second somewhere on the documentation. I don't recall where, and I've lost the tabs in my million tabs here, so I haven't gone hunting for it again. But I honestly, Ubiquiti really has been kicking it on the 60 gigahertz game. Like, I feel like that's they've done very, very well there, and there's been actually recently a blog post, or not blog post, forum post where they were talking about their LTU and what the future of it was. I was wrong. They aren't abandoning it.
It's just the same exact roadmap from 2 years ago.
Well, yeah, but okay.
It's the same exact thing.
They don't have a lot of
They took some things off.
Nothing's changed.
Well, some things did change. They dropped some of the things. They said, "Yeah, we're not going to do that anymore." So it's actually a worse roadmap than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, but yeah, if you're looking to do Ubiquiti, if you need to forklift your AC network, I would not be looking at going to LTU Ubiquiti.
There's so many products coming out, like I know Mimosa's shipping theirs right now, but everyone's going to have 6 gigahertz products with MuMIMO soon. Like the chip exists, like they're going to make it. It's just chip shortage. Like everyone I know who has gone to LTU has completely regretted it. As far as no compatibility with GPS sync, the performance is not at all what it was unless you're extremely close. But at that range, like you might as well try out something like a Medusa that has MuMIMO capability and capacity. So that, I don't know, they should probably move on to similar chipsets that new radios coming are going to use, and just kind of be done with the LTU product line. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, unfortunately, but yeah, I mean, there's still the Ubiquiti diehards, and yeah, you've got some cool stuff, but and definitely, like, my Ubiquiti 60 gigahertz stuff has been kicking ass and taking names, and it's way easier to align and set up than the Mikrotik stuff. As much as I love Mikrotik, and I have a lot of Mikrotik 60. But
to be fair, the Mikrotik interface for the 60 gigahertz is how a wireless interface I thought should be. You know, like, as in, put in a password, set the frequency, and be fucking done. You know, not have like a space little launch pad. And you know,
are you saying you want a quick set button for it?
Pardon?
Are you saying you want a quick set button for it?
Oh, God. Fair enough. But that said, we're going to try out the CN Wave stuff. I think the performance, looks very promising, and
you
in
don't
terms
get much
of
snow up there, do you?
Yeah, that stupid shovel design.
Yeah, Tom.
That
do you
CP
get much
drives me
snow
crazy.
in Ireland?
Yeah, no, the reflector. I think it's a throwback. It's an ode to the old Motorola canopies. You remember the little?
Well, that was a terrible ode to make because Chad Walks up here has been dealing with links going down because wow, snow builds up on a snow shovel.
All right.
Yeah, and it's a terrible design flaw. Oh gosh.
No, like we've tried out the new. The Mikrotik is at the N. What is it? It's not the one that's a hexagonal shape. It's just a panel antenna. And that seems to be a little bit nicer to align than the LHG. The LHG was challenging, the 60 gigahertz. But being honest, it did what it said on the tin. Very good value, very disruptive. What?
It gave you arrows to use.
Yeah.
Up, down, left, right.
Yeah, but the problem is the beam correction. The beam correction as you're aligning it confused the hell out of our installers and me, to be honest.
You gotta have patience, man. Just patience. Follow the arrows.
Patience. Yeah, no, definitely. Right, but like
I don't get paid enough to have patience, Nick.
I'm a patient. Like I'm a psychiatric patient. I'm trying to align a bunch of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, But that said, once they are aligned, they are pretty good. I've heard that the Ubiquiti ones have some advantages, and what Mike is, I'm actually furiously looking forward. I'm going to look. Mike, can you chat or put it in the links below? What that Ubiquiti product has the 66 to 71 gigahertz band as well, or because obviously that must be a new chip, because a lot of the manufacturers who use the Qualcomm were saying it was a chip limitation that they couldn't use beyond 66 gigahertz. So I'm kind of excited about that. If I could,
Ubiquiti gets their chips from another company. I can't pronounce Peraso, Peraso, something like that. Of course, they sued them, so
I have to say, just in terms of getting radios up and online, like, yes, you can get a prepaid set of Mikrotiks and just chuck them up there, but the fact that Ubiquiti's got all this stuff now, like they've got the app, they've got Bluetooth built into the devices, so your installers can just connect up. Like, that does make it a lot easier, and it's something that I think Mikrotik could learn from in a way to allow some sort of connection there. Like, yes, you've got the little Whoop'em USB sticks and things that you can plug in, but that's not going to fit in a radio.
Boom.
What?
Yeah.
A couple other things I had on here. Well, I guess just one, because there's just a link to a video from something from before. I saw a YouTube video from Ubiquiti about their WiFiman, phone app. They actually have now on the iPhone, it can use the LiDAR sensor that is on the iPhone 12 and 13, and it will produce a heat map that includes walls and objects.
Whoa.
There's a catch. What is that catch, Mike?
The catch is that you can't save it. So you can walk around the whole building.
That's in the next version.
And
that was like an amazing feature, and you can't save it.
Yeah, or is that so you spend 3 or 4 hours walking. You to upgrade to get that.
So you spend 3 or 4 hours walking around an office building to map it out entirely, only to have the ability to not save it. But in the video, it looks really nice. So if they can ever add the ability to save, that'll be good. Also, it only works on if you have a UDM router. So the Wi-Fi mapping app on your phone only works if you have a specific router.
Which does not have any Wi-Fi capabilities in and of itself. FYI, for any of those curious.
It has no relevance to Wi-Fi whatsoever, but that's the restriction they've made. Now, from what I understand, it's because that's what has their newer OS, and the newer OS has some whatever function to allow this, which still doesn't make any sense. But which means that if you an external controller, you can't use this feature either. So if you've got a USG or no USG at all, because it's Wi-Fi and it shouldn't need a controller or a certain router, you can't use it. And of course, the UXG is still in EA, or UXG Pro is still in EA, and there is no formal announcement of the standard UXG yet. So, another fine mashup by Ubiquiti. Great features, can't save, it requires hardware that people aren't going to buy anyway.
Do any of you use Raycoms or Ratcoms, the 24 and 17 gigahertz links?
I haven't heard much of them other than from European people.
They're pretty nice, I have to say. We've been using them a lot for backhaul links and backups and stuff like that. The gigabit, like obviously we have 17 gigahertz open in Ireland as license exempt. But yeah, you can get gigabit through them. They're 20 watts. They're the standard PoE. They're not like the airFiber. So it's not power over data lines. But it's. But I have to say, in terms of they have their own app for alignments and stuff like that, they're pretty badass. And of course, the advantage they have over the airFiber is you can have a much bigger dish, so you can turn down the power, the TX power, and still have the larger dish to extend the range and increase availability. In terms of rain fade and all that. But
the fact that it's not an airFiber is a benefit.
What?
So just the fact that it's not an airFiber is a benefit.
What's it cost for a full link?
So it's about 2.5 for a full link at the basic one, and then if you're going up to 3-foot dishes or 4-foot dishes, then it goes to about 3.5. So it's about another 1,000, depending on when you're going. So the bigger the dish, the more expensive they are. But you can get the ones but they're full class 3 dishes as well. So we have a site with them, and literally when they're 60 degrees apart, class 3, no problem. You can run the same frequency on them, and there's no interference.
Oh, yeah.
Like you scan.
Higher frequency is great. It's full running high frequency stuff because you can put them right next to each other and they don't
won't even see. Yeah. Like literally, you do a spectral scan, and it's like neg 90 or neg 100 all the way, and you're like, dude, I'm have a thing right beside it, and you just it's pretty cool that way, So they are phenomenal, I have to say, and they're actually quite easy and quite reliable. They'll also repair. So like we've had one failure. With an amplifier or something like that, and literally we shipped it out and they just repaired it for like $100 or something. It was, which is nice, and what's and also between the different versions. So they have Array 2, which is about 360 megs. The Array 3 would be gigabit, but they also allow you to do for the likes of utility companies where you want telemetry. So you might want a lot more devices. So you can actually do, really narrow, 3.5 megahertz channels if you want, rather than, let's say, 112 megahertz channels. So they're really easy to use interface. So it's something worth trying out. The Raycom 3s, and I think they're quite cost effective. They use about 23 watts of power typically, so they're not too bad for what they do. And the user interface is pretty nifty on them, and they do have a nice phone app for alignment. But they use Juris or LEAX, I don't know, Italian or Czech, and I think they also have some new Chinese manufacturer as well. But we go with the Juris. I think Jiras, they tend to be much quicker to turn around delivery on, but we've been pretty happy with them. They have an SFP port, so Mike would be very disappointed to hear that. Damn,
Raycom should be paying us for an advertisement.
No, but it was just that we've used them for a few years, and they're actually in turn pretty nice, so we're also a public service, We want to help our brothers and sisters out there. Let them know.
Mike.
I would say that we get them in the U.S. They're available via ISP supplies. It looks like Disher has them with up to a 4-foot dish.
Yeah.
That's a big dish.
Yeah, it is a big dish, and we've used them. The output, up to 10 dB, MTVMs on them. So obviously you have to pull them back, but they have AFTPs.
Oh yeah, that is okay. Yeah, you kept mentioning it, and it's like, yeah, that there is a brand that's the brand. There's some guys who will run them hot, and they were bragging about that on the forums. I'm like, you are an idiot.
Nah,
because they run them hot in the States because we have different requirements than you do.
No, it's certainly
you get the bigger dish.
But here's the thing: my pet hate is when people run them hot on a small dish. It's like, dude, just get a big dish and turn down the power.
Yeah,
be a good neighbor.
Get
RF engineer, please, motherfucker.
On those 4-foot dishes, they got 46 dB a gain. So you have to be able to stay legal in the U.S. As I said, it's a negative 13 or negative 16 dB.
Yeah, well, with a 4-foot dish, you definitely, you don't have 17 open at all there, do you? 17 gig? In Australia, do you have 17 open? 17 gigahertz? Is that license exempt? No. Haha, we have.
We've got 11, 24, 60.
We don't have 11. That's licensed. Fuck off.
Yeah, we have licensed.
It is licensed here too, though.
Everything is licensed here, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
11 seems to be more easily licensed in the US. I've seen, I think it's like Mimosa, one of them's just got like a system. You can just plug in the details and go click, and it generates your application and everything.
And it's like it's like a 10-year thing. Like once you get that channel, like it's yours. But man, some of the sites we have, there's Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint up there, and they just eat all the spectrum up. And if they see that there's a request coming in, they'll like try to sweep in and take it.
Yeah, no.
I don't want to hear about congested license.
No, Chicago's very clear, isn't it?
There are very few places in the world that are going to be more congested in the licensed bands than in the area around the Chicago Mercantile Exchange data
center. Is that because
in Aurora,
of
Illinois,
Obama?
Which is in the yes, it is. It is all Obama's fault. No, but it's high frequency traders operate out of that data center. So like they've used all of 6, 11, like even in 18, if I'm going perpendicular to where their paths would be, they still have so many links that 6 miles away, I can still only get a single polarity 40 megahertz channel at 18 gigahertz. So then I'm left with trying to do 6-mile links in 23 gigahertz, and I'm like, you know what? At this point, I just give up. I'm just going to stay 5 gig. I'm just going to use 5 gig. I'm just going to put on good big dishes and just deal with it. Because I can't spend all this money on a licensed link only to not be able to use a third. Yeah. So it's not to say that they're not to belittle Nick struggles, because I'm sure, I know on mountains and things like that, it can get pretty busy on those.
I at least have a few spots where I can use like 13 because it's right by the water. But yeah, I hear you. I see you, Mike.
Thoughts and prayers.
So I should brag about my dual 80 megahertz wide, 11 gigahertz.
Dude, read the room.
Use some tack, bro.
Going to one of my micro pops and feeds my house.
I mean, I will say I do have a lot of XPIC 80 megahertz channels, Aviat links in some of the areas where there's nobody at, but everywhere where there's cell towers, it's all gone.
Yeah.
Fun.
Gone.
It is an issue. Like I was talking with someone with a major vendor. It was a confidential discussion, but they were saying that it's quite challenging for the fixed wireless is getting squeezed on the fiber side with grant aid in Europe. And then obviously then on the mobile side, mobile is trying to grab as much spectrum as possible. Even from a regulatory standpoint, they're trying to say, no, that should be just for 5G. It shouldn't, and trying to classify who can get that, and it's tricky. It's difficult for the SME fixed wireless ISPs out there. I think it's not going to get easier.
Yeah. Is anyone running 3.6? Yeah, we used to. Not anymore. We pulled our last radios down for that. Nobody decided to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on 40 megahertz of spectrum. Your little county. But
all right, fellas, I say we're well over the 2-hour mark. Let's stick a fork in this thing. Otherwise I'll get hate mail. Believe it or not, when these things get too long, I get a little bit of hate mail, which is nice to have feedback. So definitely call, email, complain at me in whatever format you like.
You should know someone's listening.
You people are here.
You can blame me.
No. I mean, I'll do a supercut of Tom. I'll do a supercut of Tom at hour and 15, and then everybody else will get there. Nah, I just kidding. Let's do the wrap up. Let's do it in, I don't know, we'll go in clockwise as far as my screen goes. So Nick Arolano, if folks want to get a hold of you out on the internet, how would you have them do that?
You can email me at nick.a@hey.com or become a patron and support and jump in the Slack group.
Excellent. All right, we also have Tommy Krogan. How would you have folks interact with you out on the internet?
You can email me at tommy@lostcreek.tech. You can also find me on the Mimosa forums. I'm William5 there. I also am on the Brothers WISP, and I highly recommend anyone listening. It's totally worth the money you spend. I've gotten several new guys joined up in the last couple months, and it lots of great questions, lots of great information, lots of great people. So definitely.
Yeah, another good way of getting a hold of Tommy is to email me asking me for help consulting, and then I'll just forward you over to Tommy, and then he'll handle it. So either way, either avenue works equally well. All right, Andrew Cox, if at all you wanted people to interact with you on the interwebs, how would you have them do that?
I'm going to steal your idea and just get them to contact Tommy instead. I'm super busy at the moment. No, if you want to talk to me, admin at mikrotik-routeros.com, the not official website. Otherwise, ping me on the Slack as well. I tend to check those sort of once or twice a week at the moment, just because I've got a whole bunch of secret projects.
Are you still waiting for that cease and desist on that domain name?
Yeah, I always said to them from day one, I was like, I've got this. If you guys want it, I guess I just have to give it to you. But they've been fine with it. I just haven't said anything bad.
Well, give it time. This will get cross-posted there, and so Tom's rant will undo everything. Tom Smyth, if you wanted folks out on the internet to get a hold of you, how would you have them do it?
So you can post card or hate mail to Unit 2, Park West Enterprise Centre, Wireless Connect Limited, Dublin 12, Ireland. Or you can get me on the Slack channel. I do check in now and then, and I actually have put it in my startup list, so at least I'm always logged in.
Oh, that's wicked, man.
So probably best one. And if you're interested in State A, please reach out to me at tom.smith@wirelessconnect.eu, particularly in Europe where we have State A controls and stuff. And now is the time to be kind of getting that submission in before February the 11th. So it's definitely well worth pursuing. So thanks, guys, for your patience.
For sure.
And,
so you heard Tom. If you want state aid, call him, and he will be glad to send you money. So that's awfully nice of you.
You might be able to private message him soon on the official Mikrotik Discord, since I'm sure he'll be a moderator.
Buzzing. All right. Mike Hammett, on that note, how would you have folks interact with you, bud? All right. That sounds like a fourth for just contact Tommy. If you want to get a hold of me, I'm Greg at gregsole.com. If you want to send us questions, comments, contact us at thebrotherswisp.com. I have a blog, gregsole.com, where you can get a hold of me off of that thing too, where I very regularly blog, mostly about Ansible stuff nowadays. So networking stuff peppered in there, but mostly about Ansible. So questions, comments, thank you for sending them in. Thank you guys for listening. Can't believe we've been doing this stuff 10 years. When we started this, Andrew, I think, had just gotten his driver's license. So he was like 16, 17. So he's definitely legal now at this point. Yeah, baby face. Still got that baby face. All right. But yeah, I appreciate every single one of you fools for coming on this podcast, connecting with me, becoming my friends over the years, continually feeding into this community. Even though we all have different orbits, different trajectories, sometimes we swing away and then we'll come back every now and then. So I appreciate it every time you guys come back, and I guess we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks, and I'll hit stop.
Ideas and some good comedy given. If you missed the show already, don't worry, you're forgiven.